I didn't notice the clown until I'd already stepped out of the car. The night was quiet enough to hear the engine tick as it cooled. Overhead, the fluorescent above Pump 2 buzzed like it had a headache and wanted me to share it. The air smelled like hot rubber and faint sugar, as if somebody had opened a bag of candy and left it in the sun. The road behind me was a black seam stitching two directions of nowhere together. It stood just outside the spill of light, head tilted toward me, face pale under the flicker. The suit sagged on its frame, the fabric dingy at the elbows and dark at the cuffs. One shoe was red, the other brown. The paint on its face wasn't a grin, just white, cracked where cheeks would crease if a person smiled. The head twitched in time with the stutter of the light, the way a dog flinches when a fly lands. I swiped my card, watching the slot instead of the figure. No reaction. Big night? I tried. My voice landed flat on the asphalt and stayed there. The pump beeped, the hose thumped, gas ran. Under the light, the clown's chest rose once, slow, deliberate. Nothing else moved. The nozzle clicked off. I slid it back and reached for my keys where I'd set them on the pump ledge. The metal lip was empty. My pocket was empty. The clown was 3 steps closer. Beyond it, the glass-fronted store sat dark except for a flickering open that looked like it was lying. No one behind the counter. No movement anywhere. I started toward it. The clown moved too, same pace, same distance kept, its pant leg dragging with a soft grind. That's when I saw the second figure, farther down the county road, barely inside the cone of a street lamp. Also a clown. It wasn't moving. But even from here, I could see its head was tilted at the same angle as the first. The fluorescent over me hiccuped. Both of them twitched their heads in perfect unison, like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. The second clown stayed under the lamp long enough for me to tell myself it was a trick of distance. The lot made its own weather, buzzing light, dead air, moths tapping the diffuser like rain that never fell. The station was the old kind. 2 pumps, a cigarette urn filled with drowned filters, a price board with sunburned numbers. A wind chime hung by the door and didn't stir. This was nothing, I told myself. 2 locals having a laugh, a costume thing, maybe a live stream. Except nobody laughed. There wasn't a phone up or a whispered, "Got him," from the dark. Just the feeling of being centered in a frame someone else had drawn. I stepped off the island toward the store, and the first clown adjusted, keeping the distance like we were attached with fishing line. Its shadow slid and reformed when the light buzzed. "Nice outfit," I called, because talking is what people do when they don't know what to do. No answer. My shoes stuck and peeled on a patch of spilled soda by the curb. I put a hand on the door. The handle was tacky, like it had been held by 100 hands with sugar on them. When I pulled away, there was a faint gray smear on my palm that smelled like powder and something cosmetic. The clown bent its knees a fraction. I stepped back without meaning to. I glanced toward the road. The second clown had moved. Not far, but it wasn't directly under the street lamp anymore. It had shifted closer to the hedge that ran along the property, where the shadows could chew its lower half away. The hedge rustled. A pale oval flashed between leaves and disappeared. I looked back at the first clown. It took a step. The loose shoe scuffed grit, loud enough to erase the crickets for a heartbeat. "Okay," I said. "I get it." I didn't. I patted my pockets. Wallet, phone, no keys. The small cold in my stomach broadened. I looked back at the pump ledge. Empty. The pump screen showed nothing but my reflections stretched and oily by the backlight. The clown in the lot had stopped halfway between me and the pump, like it knew where I'd go if I tried to go there. The fluorescent hiccuped again. Both clowns tilted in the same small angle, like the light was a metronome and their necks were listening. The lamp steadied. They didn't move. Still, the space between us felt smaller, like the lot had shrunk while I wasn't watching. Inside the windows, the store's aisles sat like a model of a store more than a store itself. Chips and jerky and car fresheners hanging stiff in their racks. The register screen blinked a steady green square. The bell above the door waited to be rung. "Hello?" I called through the glass. It gave me back my voice and a dim, distorted version of my face. Over my shoulder in the reflection, the first clown's paint looked chalk dry. Its hands hung palms in, fingers slightly curled, as if it had just let go of something and might pick it up again. Behind that, at the edge of the road, the second clown stood at an angle now, as if listening with its shoulder. I had the stupid thought that if I could get inside, I'd be in a place, not the night. A counter, a phone, a person, light that stayed. I shouldered the door. The bell gave a brittle note, like it hadn't been asked to ring in a while. The air inside was cooler, but stale, like the breath of a closed room that only opens for itself. Inside, the hum of the coolers came through the floor more than the air. The smell wasn't just candy and soda. It was mop water, old cardboard, the sharp ghost of spilled gasoline baked into the tile. My eyes needed a second to make the aisles into aisles and not shadows. On my left, chips with old logos, the colors all faded a notch too far. On my right, novelty toys, the kind of plastic that turns brittle in heat, yo-yos, rubber balls, a rack of kazoos. Dust lay thick on everything except a few clean arcs on the shelf, as if fingers had been dragged there recently. I rounded the end cap and found the counter. Behind it sat a black landline with a coiled cord gone white in places. I lifted the handset. Static. Not even a dial tone. I tapped the cradle 3 times, like that ever does anything. Static, breathy and thin. The bell rang. I turned. The door was shut. In the window, the first clown's face had come close enough to fog the glass. It breathed a little cloud, watched it spread, and didn't move to wipe it away. The second clown had halved the distance from the road, standing at the edge of the lot with its head angled straight at me. I ducked behind the candy rack, peeking through a notch between shelf talkers. The pump island was empty. The asphalt was empty. The hedge moved like something low had slid through it. There was a soft scrape to my right. I leaned a fraction to see. The second clown was there now, at the far pump, the kind of movement you only notice after it's done. It hit me then. They weren't blocking me randomly. They were laying out a funnel, me at the small end. The register blinked at square. I felt watched by the shape of a perfect box. I looked toward the coolers. Could I break the glass? It was the old thick kind that crazes but doesn't shatter. You could spend all night making a web and never make a door. The bell stayed quiet. The hum got louder, or my heartbeat did. Something small toppled in the next aisle, a plastic clack. I stepped forward and saw it, a red foam nose on the floor, perfectly round, too clean. Dust settled thick around it, but hadn't claimed the circle where it lay, like it had been set there a minute ago. I didn't touch it. I didn't step over it either. I detoured as if it had a radius. Past the candy, the magazine rack held old issues warped by humidity, celebrity faces swollen slightly, headlines sun-bleached to suggestion. A corkboard by the restrooms displayed flyers with curled corners, garage sale dates 2 months back, a church picnic, a missing tabby with a picture that had faded to a white oval with ears. Someone had written "Call me" across the bottom of a work boot advertisement and torn off their number so hard the paper had stretched. In the glass of the cooler door, my face floated. I held my breath to see if the reflection would too. It did. Something else behind the glass did not. A little fog bloomed where no mouth should be. "Hello?" I tried again, softer. It sounded like the store itself saying it. Back near the door, the first clown shifted. Not much. Enough that its cheek pressed the glass instead of its forehead. The white paint left a print. The second clown's silhouette had grown bigger in the right-hand window. The angle of the shoulders wrong for comfort, like there were extra joints under the costume. I moved toward the hallway marked restrooms and employees only, keeping shelves between me and the windows. My sneaker squeaked once on sticky tile, the sound much too bright. The hallway was short and darker and smelled like bleach had fought a losing battle a week ago. To the left and right, 2 restroom doors stood ajar. Beyond them, a steel fire door with a push bar waited, promising air and the kind of cold that went outside. I put my shoulder into it. The bar depressed, the seal let go with a sigh. Night air brushed my face. I froze. The second clown filled the rectangle of the doorway outside. Not pressed to it, just there. Its head was pitched forward, chin tucked, so that the whites of its eyes showed under the brow. They were open too far. They didn't blink. Behind me, something dragged very softly across tile. I turned my head. Down the candy aisle, the first clown was walking, palm grazing each shelf edge lightly like it was reading Braille. The movement wasn't shuffling anymore. It was steady. I could hear the loose shoe make a small suction sound each time it lifted. I let the push bar go. The door closed by itself, the latch making a quiet, decisive sound. Out on the road, under the farthest streetlight, a third figure had appeared. Smaller suit, sleeves short on the forearms. It crouched with one hand splayed flat on the asphalt, like a runner waiting for the gun. The first two didn't look toward it. That was somehow worse than if they had. The crouched figure stood in three pieces, legs, then spine, then head, like it had to remember the order. It cocked its head too far and held it there, matching the others. The first clown reached the end of the aisle. Up close, the paint on its face had cracked into a net of lines the color of paper left in a window for a summer. Dirt had collected in the crease of its throat. Its lips were parted a little, not smiling, not frowning, resting in a shape that belonged on someone else. The second clown drifted along the windows, a slow parallelogram I could track through reflected light and darkness. I was being boxed, not chased, placed. From the restroom on my left came a whisper of fabric shifting over tile. It sounded like someone trying on a coat without wanting the hanger to squeak. "No," I said. The word was to myself. The air took it anyway and gave me nothing back. I stayed in the store's open space, pressing my shoulder to the end cap so I could see both the hallway and the windows. I breathed through my teeth to make the sound smaller. In the cooler door beside me, a shape low to the ground slid and paused. Pale fingers curled into view, tapping once on the bottom frame, then withdrew. Not a reflection. Not mine. They weren't outside anymore. The red nose still sat in the aisle behind me, a pinpoint on a map. I felt the store slowly draw its lines around that point and around me. "You can take the money," I said toward the aisle with the dragging sound, because my brain wanted this to be a robbery so badly it would have paid cash for the privilege. "I'll give you whatever you want. I'll walk out of here and you can—" Footsteps didn't answer. The bell didn't answer. Only the coolers, steady as breath. I inched back toward the counter, keeping one eye on the hallway. The landline waited like a museum piece. I lifted the receiver again and heard nothing but a soft hiss, like someone very small shushing me forever. On the counter lay a metal baseball bat, gray tape frayed at the handle. Some clerk had leaned it there for late nights and stray dogs and the one story you tell your friends. I took it up. The grip stuck tacky to my palm. The first clown turned its head an inch at a time until the angle maxed out the way a neck should. It stopped there. The second clown, visible in the right-hand window, mirrored the same angle, giving me a pair of wrong parentheses. The restroom door eased open another inch and stopped. A stall hinge creaked inside and stopped. Something held very still in the holding. I sidestepped so the counter and register protected one flank. An off-brand lottery dispenser sat half empty. A row of scratch-off tickets glittered under their shroud of dust. In the window, the first clown slid a palm down the glass. The sound was a dull squeak, rubber on pane. It left the print of 5 long nail beds, each dark with a line of old grime. Outside, beyond the pumps, the highway lay in its black groove, indifferent. "Help!" I tried, loud now. The sound scattered like birds and didn't come back. The second clown found the door's frame with both hands and pushed its face toward the crack between them, not enough to open anything, just enough to make its cheek flatten. Its mouth parted a little. In the reflection, the fog its breath made on the glass stayed a handful of seconds and then beaded and slowly ran. The third figure was no longer under the far light. It existed as small movements at the edge of other things, the hedge tightening, a trash bag lifting and settling. I caught the top of a wig, or hair, or the idea of hair, passing below the sill of the window on the far side, like the lake surface when a fish turns. I tried the car remote out of reflex. My key fob wasn't on me. My pockets offered lint and a receipt I didn't remember earning. I planted my feet the way I was taught to stand when a storm siren goes off. Knees soft, weight set, brain useless. The bat wanted to be held upright and forward. I let it. The light above pump 2 buzzed, faltered, caught itself. In that stutter, all three of them tilted in the same fraction, like puppets gently tugged on a shared string. The bell above the door gave a ring. The door had not opened. In the left-hand aisle, something tiny rolled and stopped by my sneaker, a penny, tarnished, sticky. I didn't look to see who had slid it. I didn't bend to pick it up. The store's lights considered me and then went out. Darkness came down hard enough to thump. The outside light from the pump set the glass into pale rectangles. Everything else was a shape inside a shape. The cooler hum died as if someone had hit it with a pillow. For a second, the only sound was breathing, not mine. Mine tried not to count. A tiny flame popped into life on the floor somewhere down the snack aisle. A lighter wheel had caught. The flame burned the color of a birthday cake and made a small blue cone at its root. Then another lighter sparked to life 2 feet farther on. Then another at the aisle's end, making a crooked runway that led not to the exit, but deeper into the store. Between the little flames stood a shadow. Not tall, not short, still as a cutout. Its head tilted the wrong way and held there, like it had been told to look and forgot to stop looking. "Don't," I said, and it came out as breath more than word. The first clown's face pressed flat against the front glass. The paint left a wet smear this time. Its mouth wasn't a grin, wasn't anything I had a name for. The tip of its tongue touched the glass and dragged. The sound was a slow, damp squeak I felt in my teeth. The second clown's hands spread on the door, fingers splayed wide, as if measuring the width of a chest. In the reflected square, their two heads made a matched set of pale ovals. Behind that, the hedge lifted in a ripple, as if something crawled under it. I slid the bat to my left hand long enough to grab the phone again, not because I expected a voice, but because a voice would have been a mercy. The line gave me the sea in a shell sound it had offered before. 3 slow taps came from the chip aisle. A matching 3 answered from Candy. The sound moved toward me and then away without ever entering the middle where I was. The tiny flames guttered. In the last of their light, the shadow at the aisle's end raised its hand. Long fingers, nail beds dark. It opened the hand in a slow, patient wave, palm up, closing without closing. Then the flames died, and my night vision turned everything into graphite. Warm air touched my right ear. I swung blind. The bat took a box off the counter and turned it into a soft weather of mints. The sweet smell hit the back of my throat hard enough to sting. Something behind the counter made a pleased, tiny sound like a child who'd been handed the right toy. A fingertip pressed the back of my neck. The pad of it was powdery and cool, like flour or a theater. It lifted. It pressed beside the first spot, then a third above them, making a triangle. I clenched every muscle I could name to keep from jerking forward. From the glass came that squeak, pop, squeak again, a round thing pressing and peeling. The noise marked time without meaning. Something elastic slipped along the back of my head and found the notch behind my ear. It tightened gently, not enough to hurt. The smell of rubber gathered in my nose and stayed. The laugh I'd heard earlier, 3 seconds, canned, a wheeze, ran once, then stuttered off on a note that wasn't laughter anymore. Somewhere under the counter, plastic rasped on plastic. The register drawer chose that moment to ping and slide open with a civilized chime. Coins shifted in their dividers. One hopped the lip and slid until it kissed my wrist. I didn't pick it up. 3 pale ovals hovered at the glass. They fogged the pane, and their fog overlapped until it was one bloom. A 4th oval rose toward them, slow and steady, like a moon caught in a different tide. On either side of me, soft fabric brushed my cheeks. Not touching, not yet. The smell of old makeup and dust and warm breath leaned close. "Okay," I said. Not a bargain this time, not even a word meant for anybody else, just a sound to be in the room with the other sounds. The breath on the glass slowed. The breath at my ear slowed. The breath at my other ear followed. In the dark reflection of the cooler door, my head tipped a degree to the left, though I hadn't moved, and the 2 shadowed heads flanking mine tipped the same. On the front pane, the 3 ovals outside tipped too, a field of flowers catching the same breeze. The bell above the door rang once, not loud, not accompanied by any gust or hinge, just the slender sound of metal choosing to be touched. A fingertip drew a line at the corner of my mouth, up, a half curve that stopped before it could be a smile. The powder on my skin cooled as if it had come from some shelf where air couldn't get. We all breathed in. We all breathed out. Something under the counter squeaked, the rubbery chirp of a nose being pressed and released. The elastic at the back of my head snugged a fraction tighter, enough to make me aware of the red circle I didn't try to imagine. In the reflection, the triangle of dots on my neck blurred to the same green every afterimage turns. The breath waited for me to match it again. I did. The store stayed dark and patient. Outside, the lamp over pump 2 buzzed once, then held steady, and the heads at the glass tilted in a small, approving notch. The 2 beside my cheeks didn't move away. They didn't need to. I breathed them in, they breathed me out, and the bell above the door hung still, like it had learned better than to interrupt.
So tell me, would you have gone into that gas station or stayed in your car and driven off? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious what you would have done. And remember, if you're ever out late and see a clown waiting under a flickering light, maybe just keep driving. I'll see you next time with another true story you won't want to hear alone. Until then, I'll be waiting for you by the fire, here at Dark Hour Tales.